Okay, I'd like to welcome you to the next session. Michael's going to present on Applesoft Basic. Line numbers need not apply. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, just a few apologies in advance. Rushing out of the country, I managed to bring the wrong USB with me, so I've managed to put the presentation back together reasonably well. So I'm in Sydney, Australia. I live in the northwest, and that there is my house looking from the street down to my 5 acres of paradise. So there will be gratuitous shots of the creatures that share the 5 acres with me. I'm not a power programmer. I'm held in awe by the C programmers and the assembler programmers who are mostly assembled here in front of us. But I'm just a basic kind of guy. So when I found in the Nibble magazine a way of doing programming in Applesoft Basic without line numbers, it made my life a lot easier. Okay. Recent visit of mother wallaby. So that just proves we don't have kangaroos in our backyards in Australia. We have wallabies. And that's her Joey. That's about 6 months old. So it's her little mini-me. Okay, so where did it start? Nibble 1983, issue 6, Nibble BASIC. So this is the hello world. So basically here we have just loop, print, hello world, end loop, quit. Very basic, just keep pouring it out to the screen. Conspicuous by the absence of line numbers. Just done in a full screen text editor. I used an Australian text editor, which was Sandy's word processor. So any text editor that allows you to save back to disk, just a plain text. And an echidna. Okay, so what's some good stuff that it's got in it? One of the best is that it allows a basic programmer to have in Applesoft if, else if, else, multiple else ifs, and so you got a bit more power than just your if then. So you can nest those to your heart's content. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the code. So that's some 20 frog mouths. What else? Okay, back to... Okay, so this is the if statement. This is a program I wrote to run a diplomacy board game competition in Canberra War Games back in the 80s. So I apologise in advance again for my highly unskillful programming skills, but this shows that you can just nest all of the commands. In there you can see that there are a few others. There's the end of some repeat until, and you've got to go sub. So we're not go sub to a line number, we're go sub to a label. Now, when this text gets processed, the end result is pure Applesoft. There is no machine code routines. It just reads this file, applies rules, and provided you've got your syntax right, because there's minimal syntax checking, and we'll get back to that, it will produce some Applesoft. So this is the same segment of code. So it's in the score entry section. So the first thing it does is your if statement. So where we had if a string is uppercase or lowercase y, we're now doing a if not. So if it's not that, we're going to jump to 740, which is effectively the equivalent of the else if. If it's not that,
how do you transform it from the numberless version to the numbered version?
I'll get
okay,
there. There's another Applesoft program. Okay, so if not your else if, it will then go to 780, which is effectively your else. So at the end of each of these segments, you've got go to 810, go to 810. So in each of those cases, it's actually jumping past or out of your nested if-else statements. And then down here, you can see these are the two until statements using a similar logic. So the bad news is it does use quite a lot of go-tos for code jumping. But I kind of got around that problem because I always did like using the task compiler, so I just added a final step at the end just to push that Applesoft that's been generated through task, and that ended up solving a noticeable slowdown in some programs. Okay, so as we came in here, you got go to and go sub labels, on error to labels. So you would do that with giving a label a name. So you'd start that with a hash. So in this case, hash initialize. You would then put your code in, your return statement as you normally would, and then you would continue wherever in your program just to refer to that by the label. So it's very, very handy along those lines. So you just go sub initialize. So what else comes with it is loop and end loop, and while and end while. So if you just want to send something around into an endless loop without going the easy way with go to back to whence you came, use the loop end loop. So how does it all work? Okay. So that's basically the article, and then as all Nibble programs, there is your preprocessor. So pre-internet, type that in. Of course, I managed to make more mistakes than I normally did, but finally got it working, and you basically just start the program, give it the text input file name. It reads that through in two passes. The first pass is setting up effectively your labels and everything for the second pass. The second pass goes through and substitutes in the line number references for the labels, because it now knows where all of those references are going, where all of the jump paths for your repeat for your if else if. And then the end result is a text file, which it then just execs back into the computer, whacks a save. There's a save command on the end of it, so it just saves it to that. So the end result is you have Applesoft program resident in memory and saved to your floppy disk. Fortunately, at the university we had dual floppy drive systems, so it kind of cut down on the disk swapping that I had to do at home. Unfortunately, actually, if you can just bear with me, I actually do think I know where there's a disk with the program on it. Yeah, I did. Okay. And then the world came crumbling down. Fine. Okay, so what did I add in, seeing that that disk is probably the reason that's got problems? That one's corrupted. So I added, so what else is in there? I added repeat until, and then one program I was writing, I got sick and tired of just doing simple increments and decrements on some variables, so I just quickly went in and added a increment and a decrement command. So it's reasonably extensionable. Then I had to do a demo, didn't have any logo or anything, so I quickly just added some turtle graphic commands to it so that you could just write in your basic program just to draw on the screen. So most of us are already familiar with that. So you've got your turn to in degrees, draw pen up, down, and color name, so black, white, violet. Screen can also be given to a color name to give you a full color in your background screen. And then you've got your move and move twos. Full and mix is just your either full screen or your 4 lines of text down the bottom. Those were fun to add in. Not all the creatures in my place are large. This here is just a little leaf-tailed gecko that just sort of fell off the wall, dropped onto my hat, so I thought I'd better go and put him back to where he came from. Okay, so where am I going to now? I made several attempts at writing extensions to Nibble BASIC, or what I was calling my own S-BASIC in the Apple, to handle full-length variables, to pass and return values to subroutines, and to also have local and global variables. But it was just proving just a little bit too much for me. So what I'm currently doing is I'm writing in Perl, effectively a new version of my structured BASIC. So it will run on any platform, and the end result is it will produce an Applesoft program which you can then inject Apple Commander, Apple Cider, whatever that you want to put in to your disk and then run it. So let's have a quick look at that. Diamond Python, very friendly. Just wants to wrap itself around you and get close and personal. That one was only about 3 meters long. It freaked my wife out. Okay, so what I want to do in this very simple one here is I just have a procedure called roll dice. I'm going to pass to it the number of dice and the number of sides. And in a loop, I'm just going to print those. So I have the 2 skillfully named variables, Fred and Frank. Now, back in your Applesoft days, you know that that is not going to work. So the first pass through of my program, it identifies all the subroutine names, because it ends up just treating a subroutine as another variable. It finds all your variable declarations. Not quite working at the moment is a declare statement, so that you can actually declare a variable. If you declare it in a subroutine, it's local to that subroutine only. And the way I do that is that if a variable name already exists, it creates a new short name for it. So Fred and Frank are going to be 2 totally different variables. First one through is going to be Fred. So does anyone notice there's going to be a problem with the variable name of Fred? Free, yes. So that's FRE is reserved, so it will go and automatically go and process. So Fred will become F0. So we've got Frank. Now, Frank is also starting with FR, so currently my logic won't actually leave that as Frank, and that will actually be turned into, in this case, F2. Fred down here, I had to basically force it, but that becomes F1. So you now have 2 variables here that are Fred, but it's just local to that subroutine. Down in the subroutine, I'm receiving my passed values, so rolls equals shift, so it gets the first variable passed. Sides equals shift, it'll get the second variable passed. So that's the 3 and the 6. Setting result to 0, and then I'm just doing a loop for the number of dice, also the number of rolls I should say, and I'm just getting my result. And then I'm returning result. So here, Frank is then assigned the result of the subroutine. Again, this is all just done with handling a hash of variable names. So what we'll do is we will have a look at what's produced. Okay, so now this is the end result. We now have a loop for F0, 1 to 10, setting A1 to 3, A2 to 6. That possibly would be the arguments that are in the roll dice. I'm then doing a go sub 100. Well, I'm not. The parser is resolving that based on the code that's generated. So down at 100, we've got rolls equals A1, so that was the rolls equals shift, so it gets the first argument, then the second argument, and then it's just doing there. So it's now setting the return value to result, which is what we were calculating here, and then it's just a standard basic return. After the go sub, it drops to the next line, so now F2 is equals R1. So you are not going to write highly optimized code with this. You're going to write highly unoptimized code. But it works with my workflow. I can get a program running quite quickly. So when back in, I think, 87, someone who had promised the world to run the scoring system for the diplomacy competition suddenly disappeared off the face of the earth and then reappeared a month later. I foolishly volunteered to write something, while just getting ready to drive down from Brisbane to Canberra. So that's about a 1600 kilometre drive. I quickly bashed out dip.txt, and that was the diplomacy program. Now, to do a little bit of saving, if you use the good old cruncher, you end up with it all compressed nicely. So in this case here, I just wanted to show it, you end up with line 20, which is your main section, line 100, which is effectively your subroutine, and then end of story. Then I would basically just pass one of those versions into task to just get a pseudo compiled program. Okay, so this is the original Nibble program. Unfortunately, all I've got is my extracted text file of it. I will try and find a disk here. This is all in the process of being made available on my blog, so I'll just put that back with these notes, a link to that, and I will also just email it out to the KansasFest email list. So I'm glad you've given me the opportunity to give you a brief journey into my little world of BASIC, and if you've got any ideas about what could be added in or questions about it, just fire away.
How does it compare with what's available under Pascal?
The main reason I wrote it is that not everyone back then and now has the Pascal to run, and I never really took to it. So I just seemed to take to Applesoft, and I programmed in Pascal. I'm sure I used to frustratingly thump the semicolon key for putting in the ones that I forgot. But it's nowhere near as powerful, and it is just a kludge of Applesoft. So again, it's I like playing with smoke and mirrors, and this well and truly qualifies as a smoke and mirrors programming exercise. Yes.
One of the things that I've done learning through the internet, Michael Mulhern, is that the
Michael Mann.
His square root routine, I just keep that on every disk so that if any program I'm entering calls for a square root, I use the user routine, and it speeds up any calculations involving square root.
Yeah.
Just keep that handy whenever you're programming it. If you need it, it saves a ton of time.
Yeah, I should actually put that in to substitute for the built-in one. Yes. The timings that I did, because of the gratuitous use of go-to statements, it does work out to be about 15 to 20% slower on a complex program. but you run that through task, and it's a bit difficult to compare not having a program with that if not and go to logic in it. But simple programs, they seem to be fairly much the same once it's been run through task, and I assume that would be same for any other compiler.
Is task on DOS or ProDOS?
DOS.
So you work primarily in DOS?
I haven't got onto that newfangled ProDOS stuff yet. Yeah, DOS 3.3, hoorah. Yes, the young gentleman in the corner.
What do the logo commands translate into on the basic side? If you put in, draw a pen up, down, all that kind of stuff. What does it
Okay.
translate to in the Applesoft side?
Okay, well, if we just scroll down here, it inserts at the top of the program these statements here. So there's a series of them. So you've got your initialization. Then I'm just playing a little bit of maths to handle my degrees of movement, and then just a series of flags for pen up, pen down, translating color name back to H color commands. So this here, here, where line 54,000 through to put in line numbers 1 through to 13, that is my pen drawing commands that I created. So, anybody else? Okay, well, as I said, I'll make all this available. I'll put it out through the KansasFest email list, and once I get my Perl program finished, I will post that up as well. And now I know what to do with it. Thank you, Quinn. It will be my first project up into GitHub.
There was an exclusive claim made about spelling C-O-L-O-U-R.
Yep.
I think it was claimed for Canada.
Well, 3 cheers for the Empire. I don't know what happened with you guys in the Rebel Alliance, but when I park my Death Star, you'll know all about getting a little bit of extra UV for retrobriding.
I recall a red maple leaf being attached to
Yeah.
a naughty Union Jack.
It's Commonwealth, I'm Australian. Yeah.
Right, I know.
We speak proper goodly too. We also say Z. So my favourite band, yes, is ZZ Top. So if they want to misspell that, if they want to mispronounce their name, I'm not going to argue with them. Not to their face, I'm not going to argue. Scary whitebeards. Okay, so we'll just wrap it up there. So thank you very much.